Welcome back, everybody, to Wisdom Unveiled. As always, we're diving deep into the good stuff. And today we're on episode 34.
34 out of 50.
That's right, 34 out of 50 of our exploration of Saadi. And today we're drawing wisdom from Marifat, which is that fascinating series with Dr. Dinani and
Dr. Larijani.
Yes. And before we jump in, just a quick reminder, this is all translated, so
There might be
a nuance or two.
a phrase here or there that
Yeah, we miss,
isn't quite.
but the core ideas are what we're after.
Absolutely.
So with that in mind, today we're looking at a Saadi poem about moving from solitude.
To a vast desert.
Yeah, sounds simple enough, right?
Yeah.
But Dr. Dinani kind of throws us a curveball right off the bat.
Yeah.
He says true solitude isn't really about being physically alone.
Right.
Like you could be in a crowded room and still be in solitude, or you could be surrounded by nature,
And totally miss it.
Totally miss the point.
Yeah.
So what's key here and what he's getting at is that distinction between where our body is and where our mind is. If we're fixated on, possessions, anxieties,
Yeah.
external things, we're not in solitude. We're actually tethered to those things.
Yeah, we're still.
So even if I'm meditating on a mountaintop,
Yeah.
but I'm stressing about work deadlines,
Yeah.
I'm not truly solitary.
Right. You're still attached to.
That's a tough pill to swallow. Is
Right.
anyone ever truly alone then in that sense?
I think that's where Dr. Larijani jumps in and it gets really interesting. He says, just the fact that you're asking that question
Right.
already shows that you are distinct from your thoughts.
Okay.
Like if you think about it, you can observe your thoughts, right?
Yeah.
That means there's a you that's separate from all that mental chatter.
Whoa. Okay. So there's me and
Yeah.
then there's this whirlwind of, thoughts and desires and emotions.
Exactly.
So is Saadi talking about separating from that whirlwind even for a moment to experience true solitude?
Yeah, that's the idea. And Dr. Larijani builds on this by connecting it to this even bigger philosophical idea, which is that recognizing this separation is actually the foundation for spiritual growth.
Okay, so it's not just some poetic image. This is like a whole worldview that Saadi is hinting at here.
Right.
But what about that desert the poem mentions? Where does that fit into all of this?
Well, Dr. Dinani explains that the desert symbolizes the other, everything that's not me.
And that's a huge category.
It is. It's everything from
Your phone,
to
the stars,
the
universe.
the entire universe. Yeah.
But then Dr. Larijani takes it even further, and he quotes someone saying, "There's always a you in front of me," implying that there's this ultimate you out there, the divine.
Oh, wow. So Saadi's poem isn't just about physical solitude. It's about our relationship with everything outside of ourselves.
Everything that's not us.
Even God.
Yeah, including that ultimate other.
And that's heavy stuff.
It is. And then it gets even deeper. Saadi writes, if you have a heart-seek reason, and this really struck me because you usually hear, heart versus reason,
Totally.
as if you have to choose one or the other.
It's like that classic battle between logic and emotion.
Right. But Saadi is flipping the script here.
He is. He's saying that they're intertwined, and actually both scholars get pretty passionate about this point.
Right.
Dr. Dinani emphasizes that a true heart, one that's full of love and compassion, is what actually fuels the pursuit of wisdom, and that's what reason I.
So it's not an either situation.
No, it's both hands.
You need both to be whole.
Yeah, and Dr. Larijani adds to this by saying that, reason without the heart can be cold, and calculating, even manipulative emotions without reason can just lead to chaos.
Man, Saadi was onto something.
He was.
He's like, use your head and your heart, people.
Exactly.
But there's this other analogy that Dr. Dinani uses that really stuck with me. He says, experiencing this world is like sucking on something to get to the essence.
Okay.
It sounds a little strange at first,
I can see that.
but when you think about it,
It makes sense.
he's saying everything has that surface level, like the shell of an almond.
Mm-hmm.
We often get stuck there and never really taste the nut inside.
Yeah, we never get to the good part.
Exactly, and that's what he calls being kashri, right?
Super superficial.
Superficial. I know a few people who might fit that description,
Maybe.
but it's a trap we can all fall into.
It is, for sure.
And then Dr. Larijani connects this to a Quranic verse that says, everything will perish except the face of your Lord.
Meaning what endures is the essence, not the outward form.
So Saadi's urging us to look beyond the surface, beyond those fleeting appearances.
To find that true meaning.
Yeah, to find that true meaning and value in things.
Exactly. And that applies to how we view ourselves, other people, even our problems.
It's a whole different way of seeing the world.
It is a whole different way of seeing the world.
There's a lot to unpack there.
Definitely.
I feel like we've only just scratched the surface of what these scholars are getting at.
We have a lot more to dive into.
What else is in store for us?
Well, there's this other Saadi poem that they analyze where he talks about casting aside a heart that's enamored of forms. And this leads to a whole discussion of shirk,
Shirk?
which is often translated as idolatry, but it's much deeper than that.
Yeah, when I hear idolatry, I think of, worshiping statues.
Yeah, like idols.
But Dr. Dinani says that shirk is really about anything that distracts us from the one true God. It's like those things become idols in our life.
Exactly. He uses this brilliant analogy of a compass.
Okay.
He says if the needle keeps getting pulled by all these magnets all around it, it can't accurately point north.
I see.
Our hearts are like that compass, and the magnets are all those worldly desires and attachments that are pulling us away from our true purpose.
So it's not just about what we do, but like why we do it.
Exactly.
Our intentions matter just as much as our actions.
Absolutely. And Dr. Larijani connects this to another line from the same poem where Saadi says, every hour from a different direction, we head towards some form of idol worship.
Wow.
He's saying even rituals and practices, if they're done for the wrong reasons, can actually become a form of shirk.
That's a powerful point. It's so easy to get caught up in the motions without checking our intentions.
It really is.
But how do we stay on track? Is there like a right path, according to Saadi?
Well, Dr. Dinani brings up this idea of a caravan to represent this spiritual journey.
A caravan.
Like a caravan in the desert.
Okay.
He says a caravan has a destination, it has a route, and everyone has to kind of work together to reach that destination.
Yeah.
Our spiritual journey is similar.
So we're not just like wandering aimlessly.
Not if we're following Saadi's guidance. He provides that map, the wisdom we need, but we have to actually make the effort, stay focused, and support each other along the way.
Speaking of support, that reminds me of what the scholar said about soul friends. Those kindred spirits who really understand the journey.
Yeah, those people who get it.
Yeah.
Dr. Larijani really emphasizes that true companions on the spiritual path, they remind us of our purpose. They challenge us to grow and they help us stay on track, when we get distracted or discouraged. It's like having a spiritual support system.
And it's not just about getting support, right? We also have to give support to those who are maybe a little earlier on the path than we are.
Absolutely. It's a two-way street. We're both learning from those ahead of us and sharing what we've learned with those behind us.
Right.
Saadi believed that this kind of mutual support is actually essential for creating a just and harmonious society.
Which brings us back to that idea of love as his unifying force.
Yes.
And it's not just about romantic love, right?
No, it's much bigger than that.
It's universal.
It is. Dr. Dinani highlights this passage where Saadi says, the lover sees no fault in the beloved and finds any affliction borne for the sake of the beloved to be light.
Wow.
And he explains that this isn't just about human relationships. This is about cultivating that same level of love and devotion for the divine.
So it's about seeing the beauty and perfection in everything, even when things are tough.
Yeah, even in those difficult moments.
Well, how do we cultivate that kind of love?
Yeah.
It feels almost impossible.
Well, there's this line from the poem we mentioned earlier, unveil the truth to us so we may shatter these idols. And Dr. Larijani points out the significance of that word unveil. He says it implies that the truth is already present, but it's hidden behind a veil of, ignorance and delusion and worldly desires.
So it's not about creating something new. It's about uncovering what's already within us.
That's the idea.
That reminds me of that whole essence over surface idea we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, they're connected.
It all ties together.
It does. And Saadi gives us the tools to do that through his poetry, his stories, his wisdom. He guides us towards that self-discovery, that spiritual awakening and realizing our true nature.
And he does it in such a beautiful and engaging way.
See,
It's not just abstract philosophy. It's poetry that really speaks to the soul.
He does.
And that reminds me of another point Dr. Dinani makes about how Saadi uses the imagery of taste and flavor to describe spiritual experience.
Oh, yes. He says that true knowledge has a flavor that can only be experienced. It can't just be intellectually understood. He uses the term dak, which is often translated as taste, but it implies this much deeper intuitive knowing.
And it ties in perfectly with what Dr. Larijani was saying about Saadi's emphasis on practice over theory.
Yes.
It's not enough to just read about these concepts.
Yes.
We have to actually live them to taste them for ourselves.
Exactly. It's through practice, through prayer meditation, acts of kindness, conscious living, that we cultivate that inner knowing, that direct experience of truth that Saadi's pointing us towards.
It's like anything else in life.
Yeah.
You can read all the books you want about playing the piano.
Right.
But until you actually sit down and practice,
You'll never know.
you'll never truly know what it's like to create music.
And in the same way, you can study all the spiritual teachings in the world, but until you put them into practice, You'll never actually experience that profound shift in consciousness that Saadi's describing.
It's about embodying the wisdom, not just knowing it intellectually.
Embodiment, yeah.
It's like he's saying, don't just take my word for it. Try it out for yourself. Experience the flavor of this wisdom and see how it transforms your life.
Taste. See what it's like.
But Saadi also talks about facing our shadows.
You know, our shadows.
Those parts of ourselves that we'd rather not acknowledge.
The dark side.
How does that fit into this whole spiritual journey?
That's where the real growth happens.
Mm.
Dr. Dinani points out that Saadi doesn't shy away from those difficult emotions, our flaws and fears and negative tendencies. He actually embraces them as part of the human experience.
It's so refreshing to hear that, because so often we're told to just ignore those negative thoughts and feelings, pretend they don't exist.
Right, just shove them down.
Yeah.
But Saadi argues that suppressing them only makes them stronger. They fester in the darkness and eventually erupt in all these unhealthy ways.
Oh, I see.
It's about bringing those hidden aspects into the light, acknowledging them and integrating them into our wholeness.
So it's not about pretending to be perfect. It's about accepting all parts of ourselves.
All of it.
Even the messy ones.
The good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah, exactly. And Dr. Larijani highlights this passage where Saadi says, whoever knows himself knows his Lord. He argues that true self-knowledge requires facing those shadow aspects, understanding their roots, and then learning to transform them into sources of strength and wisdom. It's like that saying, our greatest wounds become our greatest sources of healing.
Yes.
It's in those dark places, those difficult emotions, that we often find our greatest potential for growth.
Absolutely. And Saadi shows us how to navigate those dark places with courage and compassion and this really deep understanding of human nature. He doesn't sugarcoat the journey. He acknowledges that it will be challenging.
There's that line from one of his poems, in the Garden of Love, thorns are as numerous as flowers.
It's a good one.
It's a reminder that the path to spiritual awakening isn't always easy or comfortable.
Right. It's not all sunshine and roses.
Yeah.
But those challenges, those thorns, they're what ultimately strengthen our resilience and deepen our compassion and refine our character. Dr. Dinani even compares the spiritual journey to refining gold.
Refining gold, how so?
Well, he explains that gold ore has to be heated to extreme temperatures and pounded and purified to remove all those impurities and to reveal its true brilliance. Our spiritual journey is kind of similar. We go through trials, we face our fears, we confront our weaknesses, all to let go of what's holding us back and reveal the gold within.
Wow, that's a powerful analogy.
It is.
It's not about avoiding the fire, but using it to transform ourselves.
Exactly.
But we don't have to go through this alone, right?
Definitely not. Saadi emphasizes the importance of seeking guidance from wise teachers and mentors and spiritual companions, people who can help us navigate those challenging times.
Like having a guide who knows the terrain and can help us avoid those potential pitfalls. Someone to encourage us when we feel like giving up.
Exactly.
And speaking of guidance, there's that fascinating conversation about the relationship between language and reality.
Oh, yes. Both scholars get quite passionate about that one.
Really?
Dr. Dinani uses this analogy of a finger pointing at the moon. The finger isn't the moon itself.
Right.
But it directs our attention towards it. Language is like that finger. It can point us towards the truth, towards the divine, but it's not the truth itself.
So words are just tools.
Tools, yeah.
They can be helpful, but we can't get too caught up in them.
We can't get stuck on the words themselves.
Right. And Dr. Larijani adds that Saadi was a master of using language to evoke a sense of the ineffable.
That which can't be fully grasped or expressed in words.
So he was using words to point beyond words.
Exactly. He was a master of that.
Yeah.
He uses metaphors, imagery, rhythm, sound, all to create this experience that transcends the limitations of language.
And Dr. Dinani makes another interesting point about how Saadi uses silence so effectively.
The power of silence.
Yeah, I love that. It reminds me of those pauses in music that allow the deeper meaning to resonate.
It's like those spaces between the notes where the real magic happens.
Exactly. And Saadi's inviting us to listen not just to the words, but to the silence that surrounds them.
To those spaces between the lines.
To those spaces between the lines where the true essence of his message can be found.
Yes, and that kind of listening requires a certain stillness, a quieting of the mind, a willingness to let go of our preconceptions and just be present with the experience.
It circles back to that idea of solitude, that inward state of detachment we talked about earlier.
It all connects.
It all ties together.
It does.
It's like clearing that mental clutter so we can perceive things more clearly, more deeply.
Exactly. And Dr. Larijani brings up this interesting metaphor of a mirror. to represent this inner stillness.
Okay.
He explains that a mirror reflects whatever's placed before it.
Uh-huh.
If the mirror's surface is agitated, the reflection will be distorted.
Right.
But when the mirror is still, the reflection is clear and accurate.
So our minds are like mirrors.
That's the idea.
If our minds are chaotic, our perception of reality is distorted. But when we cultivate that inner stillness, we see things more clearly.
Precisely. When our minds are filled with thoughts and desires and distractions, our perception of reality is clouded. But when we cultivate that inner stillness, that quietude of mind, we become like a clear mirror, reflecting the truth of things as they are.
Which reminds me of another analogy Dr. Dinani uses, the one about polishing a mirror.
Oh, yes. He says our hearts are like mirrors that have become tarnished over time with the dust of, worldly attachments and negative habits.
Mm-hmm.
Our task is to polish those mirrors, to purify our hearts and minds so we can see clearly once again.
And that polishing process, it's not a one-time thing.
No, it's
It's ongoing practice, a continual effort to remove that dust
Yeah.
and maintain that inner clarity.
Exactly. It's a lifelong journey of self-discovery and refinement and cultivating those qualities that allow us to reflect the divine light more fully.
Which reminds me of that line from one of Saadi's poems. The heart is a polished mirror. Let it not be tarnished with the rust of sin.
Such a powerful image. It reminds us that we have the power to choose what we allow to reflect in our hearts. We can choose to focus on the positive, the beautiful, the true. Or we can allow negativity and judgment and fear to cloud our vision. The choice is ours.
And Saadi's poetry offers a path, a guide to making that choice more consciously and intentionally.
A roadmap.
He invites us to see the world with new eyes and experience life with a deeper sense of awareness and cultivate those qualities that lead to true fulfillment.
And he doesn't preach or lay down strict rules. He just encourages us to live a life that's aligned with our deepest values and our highest aspirations.
Speaking of living a meaningful life, there's that passage where Saadi says, life is a precious gift. Don't waste it on trivial pursuits.
It's a good reminder.
Yeah, it's like a wake-up call, reminding us to prioritize what truly matters. What does he say constitutes a meaningful life?
Well, Dr. Dinani adds that Saadi believed that true wealth lies not in material possessions, but in the richness of our inner lives, our relationships, our character, our contributions to the world, and our connection to the divine.
So it's about shifting our focus from external achievements to internal fulfillment, from chasing after fleeting things to cultivating qualities that bring lasting peace and happiness.
Exactly. And that actually leads to a fascinating discussion about Saadi's views on the nature of time.
Time, that seems like a huge topic to tackle.
It is, but Dr. Dinani points out that Saadi saw time as both a precious resource and a potential trap.
Yep.
He explains that we often get caught up in the past, regretting mistakes or dwelling on what we've lost, or we worry about the future, anxious about what might happen. And in doing so, we miss the present moment, the only time we truly have to experience life.
It's like we're constantly living somewhere else, either in the past or the future, but never fully present in the NOW.
Right, we're never really here.
Does Saadi offer any advice on how to escape that trap?
He does. Dr. Larijani says that Saadi encourages us to shift our awareness to the present moment, savor each experience, appreciate the simple things, and live each day as if it were our last.
It's like that saying, yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, but today is a gift. That's why it's called the present.
I love that one.
Me too.
And Saadi's poetry is full of reminders to embrace the present moment, to find joy in the everyday, and to appreciate the beauty that surrounds us.
Like that beautiful line from one of his poems, the flower that blooms today will wither tomorrow. Enjoy its fragrance while you can.
Beautiful, isn't it? It's a reminder that everything in life is impermanent.
Yeah.
So we need to savor each moment while it lasts. And that awareness of impermanence actually deepens our appreciation for life. It makes each moment more precious, and it motivates us to live more intentionally.
Wow, that's profound. It's a complete shift in perspective. But this whole journey sounds intense, like peeling back layers and layers of conditioning and beliefs.
That's a great way to put it. Dr. Dinani actually uses the analogy of peeling back the layers of an onion to describe the spiritual journey.
I love that. It speaks to that idea of gradual unveiling, uncovering deeper and deeper truths as we progress. But that sounds like it could be painful at times.
It can be, Dr. Larijani says, that the process can be both exhilarating and painful. Exhilarating because we're discovering new insights and new perspectives and a greater understanding of ourselves and the world.
But painful because we have to let go of old beliefs and cherished assumptions and comfortable ways of seeing things.
Exactly. It's like shedding layers that no longer serve us, even if it feels uncomfortable or even painful in the moment.
And sometimes those layers are pretty tough to peel away. It takes effort and introspection and a willingness to face those shadow aspects we talked about earlier.
It does. But Saadi reminds us that the journey is worth it. With each layer we shed, we move closer to our true nature, to the core of our being, to that divine spark that resides within each of us.
It's like we're uncovering our authentic selves, that essential goodness that was always there but was hidden beneath layers of conditioning. And as we peel away those layers, we become more free, more loving, more compassionate, and more fully alive.
Beautifully said. We begin to see the world with new eyes, and we discover this depth of joy and meaning that we never even knew existed.
It's like that saying, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. And Saadi's poetry provides those first steps, those initial insights that set us on the path.
He gives us the tools and the guidance and the inspiration to embark on that journey. And he reminds us that even though the path may be long and winding, the destination is worth every step.
And along the way, we discover that the journey itself is the destination.
Yes.
It's in those moments of exploration and challenge and growth and connection that we truly experience the richness and beauty of life. Saadi's work is all about embracing the fullness of that experience.
Absolutely. He invites us to savor each moment, learn from every encounter, and live each day with a heart full of love and gratitude and purpose.
Well, listeners, what an incredible deep dive into the wisdom of Saadi. We've explored his teachings on solitude, the nature of self, the interplay of heart and reason, the search for essence, the power of love, and so much more.
And through it all, we've seen how his words spoken centuries ago continue to resonate today, offering timeless guidance for navigating the complexities of life and creating a better world.
If you're feeling inspired to learn more, we encourage you to seek out Saadi's work for yourselves. There's a whole world of wisdom waiting to be discovered in his poetry and prose.
And as always, we're so grateful to you, our listeners, for joining us on this journey of discovery. Until next time, keep seeking, keep growing, and keep shining your light.